Call with Dads, your podcast for unscripted conversations and honest opinions about what matter to dads. Join the call in this journey called fatherhood. Now here are your hosts to get things started. E.A. Maynard, the man of many words, and some of them could make sense.
Hi, I'm E.A. Maynard.
Along with Mr. Pancakes, who is working to bring back family traditions starting with breakfast.
This is Mr. Pancake, and this is Call with Dads.
I read a couple articles about manning up, being a good father, what manning up means for being a dad and things like that. I mean,
Right.
And forgive me, I have my sinuses just killing me, so if I sniffle, you know. But so I mean, let's start off simply with, what do you consider manning up, being a man, or as a father?
Right. So I would say, looking into it, discussing something such as like manning up to be a man or be a father, for the most part, it boils down to taking accountability and responsibility for your actions. I was watching a video. I think I even posted it on the Pancakes with Your Dad page. The guy was saying, that child didn't want to be here. You brought it here based on your actions. And he said, the kid doesn't owe you anything. And I had a couple of people, get flack on that, they misconstrued what the guy was trying to say, and they think he's talking about, oh, the kid doesn't owe you anything, as in you bought him this and you fed him food, and the kid maybe owes you this or that. Well, no, the kid doesn't owe you anything. You owe it to the kid, to teach the kid responsibility, accountability. You owe it to the kid to teach him how to behave, how to have manners, and all these things. These are all stuff, so it's important for you to man up. And that was one of the things that I was reading. You have to kind of man up and take actions and take responsibility. So by you doing that, you essentially are setting a good example for the child. If, like for me, growing up, I really didn't have the best of example as a dad. So it was fearful because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know how to do it. I almost had to, A, do a lot of Googling, and
Right.
B, I also had to, follow others, meet other dads. My wife's dad, talk to him about stuff. Even talk to women. Odd, right? Talk to women about it. What did your husband do? Pick up on all these things. So it's important for me to give a good example and be a good example for my child that way. Because my daughter, she's a girl, so obviously she's going to be looking for a husband. She's not going to be a dad. She's going to be a mom. So she needs to be able to not know how to be, but know what to look for in a man. And these are things that I need to be able to teach her. So to me, those are important as a man for the child. So having that fear of not knowing what to do, how to do it, and how to be a good example, it's stuff you just need to take initiative. Some of the things I was looking up was reading books. There are 1,000 child books out there. There's tons of parenting styles, tons of parenting books, tons of fatherhood books. We've collected quite a few and put them on the page on the website.
Yeah.
I think I could probably find some more. That's the ultimate goal, is to build the website to where we have more in the future.
Right.
But that's that part for me. For the most part, there's 1,000 other fears. What are some that you look at or that you had prior?
When I first started thinking about it, for me, it wasn't really. I always heard you need to man up, in the sense of take care of your kid, be there, don't walk out, be a good husband, all this. These are the initials, like you said, the initial manning up theory that I heard. And, when I started thinking about it, one thing, and I don't know why it popped in my head, was an old movie from the 90s called Friday. I don't know if you ever saw that movie or not, but there's a scene in there where where, and I can't remember the characters' names now, but the father was talking to his son, and basically in the scene, he's asking his dad, "Dad, do you love me?" And he goes, "Love you? Not my job to love you. It's my job to feed you, keep you safe, teach you. Those are my job. These are," and he goes through like this dialogue about what his job as a father is. And, to a point, I agree with you. As a father, your job is to raise the kid, make sure he learns right from wrong, do all these things. Naturally, most people are going to love their kids, but your general purpose is to make sure you teach them right from wrong, how to be a good person, things like that. So and I don't know why that popped in my head, but it made me realize that part of being a father and manning up to be a father is just the everyday grind of what it takes, teaching and making sure that you're doing what's right for your kid, what's going to make them a strong figure for their future kids and for other people. If you can raise your kid to be a leader and know, like for you raising your daughter to be able to look to find out what a good man is supposed to look like. Just like what I'm trying to do for my daughter as she gets older and goes through it. And my son, teaching him, hey, this is right, this is wrong. Because, I think it's Dennis Prager who's said that naturally people's inherited spirit is not to be good, but to do what's their thought of best for them. And being good is something we have to teach our children. And we have to show them what the good life is through whatever religion you're choosing, making sure that you're not going to extremes with that religion. And you can hate me for saying that if you want, but the fact is this is what's going to probably get people upset is, I don't care what your religion is. I'm Christian. But even Christians have extremists, things like that. There's extremists in almost every religion. There's extremists in almost every way of thinking. So you have to teach your children, don't go to that extreme, but learn, love, follow the good portions of it so that you can lead a good life. I mean, like, I've known people in all walks of life, all areas, some that I agree with, some that I don't. And you have some that, like I said, take it to extremes. And that seems to be a big problem today is everyone's taking their beliefs, their views to extremes to the point of anybody outside of your views is... And I'm trying to remember the guy's name that and because you mentioned him to me before, and now I'm trying to remember his name, which is killing me. I'm trying to look it up as we're talking.
The Jordan Peterson guy?
No, this is Nick Freitas.
Oh, yeah, Nick Freitas. Yeah.
Freitas, yes.
He's a state congressman, state representative of Virginia, right? Yeah.
Yep, you're in Virginia. So I stumbled across one of his videos because I remember the name after you said it and watched it, and he started talking about Virginia. And that's what got me more interested in him because obviously I'm in Virginia. But he put out a video today, or at least it came on my notification today, where he's talking about on the floor that people are instantly calling anybody that they don't agree with racist, questioning their belief systems as a Christian, questioning all this stuff, just attacking them personally for not agreeing with their point of views. And I think manning up, in my opinion, is stepping up, showing your child, hey, there's a lot of crazy people out there. They're going to do whatever they can to tear you down. And your job is to be there every day, or at least every day you can be there, to teach them this is what you need to do to stand up against those people. Your job is to take the right path, find the right way, and not let those people sway you to go down the wrong path. One of the book series that I'm trying, if I ever get time to actually sit down and write, is The Last Bar. Basically, started off as a joke of a demon and an angel at a bar, right?
Yeah.
And as I did my research, one of the things it talks about is this demon, his main objective is to stray people away from doing what's right, building a future for Jesus and for Christ and for the religion and all this, where, and like I said, I don't care if you want to use that as a metaphor or use it as a religious tone, make yourself happy, do whatever you want. But manning up is a mindset now of doing what it needs to be, even if it's hard for you, because, you know, it's, as a man, it sounds bad, but we don't have the opportunity to sit there and whine, oh, poor's me, I feel this, I feel that. I mean, literally, my kids are jumping on me, and I'm sitting there groaning, and they are laughing because they're getting hurt daddy.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, yeah, my wife constantly, well, why don't you tell them to stop? I'm like, well, they need to learn how to fight. They need to know how to roughhouse.
Yeah.
I don't want them thinking, oh, well, if I'm hurting, then I need to worry about this or that. They have to know limit. So right now, like my daughter, almost 2 years old, so probably in a couple months she's going to be 2 years old, and you know, she weighs maybe 25 pounds, and maybe between 25 and 30, I don't know, but about, she jumps, like when I lay on the floor, she'll jump on me, and you know, I could sit there and say no and yell at her, and but as a man, I'm gonna have to deal with her jumping on me and trying to bounce. It makes her giggle and laugh when she hears me go oof. And then my son runs and jumps on me. He's definitely much more than 30 pounds. And you know, it's one of those things that they have to see that a man's going to be able to withstand a little bit of pain, and those are memories they're going to enjoy.
Right. My daughter likes to headbutt me. Right. Where she stands is perfectly in my crotch area, so she'll run up to me and bam with her head right in my crotch. That sucks. That is not fun. Just gotta and just keep going.
Yeah, but kind of like the one video I saw you post, and I think I made a comment to you. I don't remember if I made this comment to you. It was shortly after I saw that video you post where the kid's on the ground. He scraped his elbow.
Yeah. The Bill Burr video.
Yeah, I was trying to remember the guys, but it was just kind of that, and like my son.
Me.
Yeah, and to me it was funny because like 2 days after I saw that, my son ran in for swim class, and I told him, "Don't run, the floor's wet." And he ran, and he had a wet spot and slipped and fell on his butt. Well,
yeah, well, I told him.
Well, no, he didn't cry. He didn't cry. He just kind of sat there, and there's this another guy, and I'm assuming he was dad. If he wasn't a dad, then he's really creepy because being in a kid's swim center while, you know what I mean? And I just walk. Yeah, I just walk up. He's like, "Oh, he fell and he went." I'm like, "Yeah, he's fine." I looked at him. I'm like, "I told you not to run. See, fell."
Yeah, right.
I'm like, "No blood. You're not screaming. Get up. Let's go." And the guy just kind of looked at me and kind of like the video. I'm trying to raise a little man. I'm not trying to raise one of these sissies. Now, mind you, if he, like last night, he fell and hit his head on the floor, and in our basement, the floor is just a concrete pad. So, mind you, even with the rug down, it still hurt him. So, yeah, something like that. I'm gonna sit there and go, okay, it's okay. Take a deep breath. Let's calm down.
Right.
Let's get through the pain.
I always try to look right here to see if they got a concussion. My daughter, she's done the same thing. She slipped back and smacked the back of her head on a tile. And I'm like, you know, once I get rid of the physical pain portion, all right, yeah, we're good. All right, let me look in your eyes. Okay, no concussion. Good. All right, get up. Don't do it again.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing is nowadays it doesn't seem like parents are trying to, or dads are supposed to teach their kids to be tougher. And like you hear like the older movies, you always hear the girls joke, I was raised with 3 brothers. I'm used to taking a beating, you know? Yeah. Now it's, oh no, I was raised by 3 brothers. Now I know how to braid my hair.
Yeah.
I mean,
like that.
Yeah, so it's kind of that whole what happened to the tougher. And I like to think like middle America is still teaching kids to be tough,
Right.
but it's
Yeah.
it's that kind of theory that, I don't know. To me, it's, you want to think middle America is teaching kids to be tough, be
Right.
good, either be mentally tough, and not everyone's going to be physically tough.
Right. And I mean, that's, to me, that's stuff that's quite important as a dad and as a man. You know what I mean? You gotta think about it in two ways. One way is, you know, who's gonna get your oil? You know, with that little sissy boy that puts on makeup and dresses like a girl. Who's gonna build that building over there? Who's gonna manufacture that car? You know, you think, oh well, women can be engineers too. Yes, they can. Women can be engineers,
Right.
but you know, I'm not talking about the engineer. I'm talking about the grunt, the greasy guy with the cuts on his hands and the bruises on his neck, and you know, his back's been hurting for the last 30 years. I'm talking about that guy. That guy is gonna build your house and build your buildings and pull the oil out of the ground at the oil rig out in the middle of the ocean for a year while he's out there, you know, missing his family. You know, I'm sorry, but that ain't gonna be women, and that ain't gonna be sissy boys dressed like girls. You
Right.
need those men. We need those men that need to be big and strong, muscular, and they spit and they smoke and they drink beer and they say bad words. We need those guys. I'm sorry, but that's life. And you
It is.
have to be able to tell and teach your boys, and even your girls, that these people exist, and this is how. There's a fine line in between doing it and when is appropriate and when is not appropriate. And it's part of society, you know, and men have to be men at some point. Even if the man is, you know, because there are men that work administrative roles. You know, I work an administrative role at my company, you know, so, but in that sense, I am still a man, because when I go home, you know, I show my daughter that I hand built the garden in the backyard with wood and nails and a hammer. You know,
Mhm.
I mow the lawn, I do this, I do that. So I do a lot of manly things, but then I also come home and cook dinner for the wife now and again, you know. So I do half and half. I do some stuff, but it's important. And then the other side of that, you know, it's a version of love that only a man can provide, only a dad can provide. It's like that video. I posted a video the other day of like a podcast. Is a woman and another guy. The woman was like, "I don't respect men," and the guy was like, "Well, did you have a dad?" And she goes, "No, I didn't have a dad getting raised. You know, when I was being raised." I said, "Well, there you go. You know, that's
Mhm.
why you don't respect men, because you didn't have a man as an example and a good man to show you what men can be and how men can be and why you should respect men. You should respect women also, but you probably had a woman to learn that respect for the woman. You had a mother. You didn't have a father, so you didn't learn that respect. You know, and it's very important." And he goes on to talk about how, you know, God's love is a father's love. You know, there's a difference between a mother's love and a father's love. You know, a mother will coddle you, it's loving baby, and the man will say, "Well, don't do that again, get up," you know. Whereas if you only ever have the mothers, you're gonna, I could even see it in my daughter. When my daughter does something and gets hurt or mistakes something, and my wife is like, oh honey, after 2-3 tries, she starts to realize that's what my wife's gonna do, so she'll go and do it on purpose.
Right.
You know, when she sees me do it, I'm like, all right, get up, don't do that again. That hurt, didn't it? Yeah, get up, let's go. She's not going to look to do that again. She's going to learn a lesson. I shouldn't do this, and this won't happen. You know what I'm saying? So there's that separation of learning these different things, and then also when you, as a woman getting older, you learn to respect men. You know, so you have much better relationship with your husband if you respect him, because then you're going to find a man that is going to respect you. You know, it's not all about a one-sided respect. So
Right. You know, with that topic, it reminds me, I think I sent you the video and you said you've seen the guy that I sent you before, where it was the guy talking about the 5 people you call.
Yeah.
And you know, that, to me, that kind of goes along with this because, you
Mhm.
know, the wife or girlfriend listed off the 5 people that she calls, and they're all her friends, and they're all going to sit there and tell her,
Yeah.
oh, well, he's being a jerk, and you're the right, and this and that. Where
Yeah.
he said the 5 people he would call would be his father, some friends of his, but they're men friends that, and the difference between the people he would call and she would call is her list of people were all people validating her and
Right.
basically making sure she felt like she was in the right. Where
Right.
his 5 people, as a man, and a wife should do this too, and manning up, you know, manning up, your instant thought is it's a man's thing to do. Women can, I guess, man up too, because in a relationship, you need those. In this video, the guy was saying his 5 people are sitting there saying, you need to get your act together. She works hard for you. She does this. And their job isn't to pat you on the back, make you feel good. Because,
Right.
you know, men, we have thicker skin, or we should have thicker skin. But anybody needs to find out, you need that group of people you're going to call that's going to be bluntly honest with you. Just
Right.
flat out tell you, no, you're in the wrong. Look at what this person does for you. Your wife does the cooking. Your wife helps with the kids. Does this. As much as you think you do all this stuff,
Yeah.
your house would not run the way it does without your wife there.
It's essentially, affirmation or validation. If you and your husband get in an argument and you call somebody to talk to them, are you looking for validation on why you're right and you should continue to be mad and hate your husband? That way it draws it out even longer and you two just further separate. Or should you be looking for somebody that says, we had a fight, and you need somebody to help you and remind you why you love him, because you're in the middle of a fight and your emotions are flaring. Me personally, I want to call somebody that's going to tell me something about my wife that's so good that's going to remind me why I love her. I don't need to validate myself and why I'm right and why I should continue to hate my wife. That's wrong. That's stupid.
Right.
I want to know why I love her. I'm in a bad mood. I'm mad at her right now. I want to be reminded of why I love her. I mean, technically, I don't really need to be reminded because my wife's amazing. But
Right.
Emotions do flare, and every now and again, I should, if I'm going to call my dad's going to be like, well, you had an argument. I'm not on your side or hers, but just remember how much you love her, how much she does this, how much she does that. Yeah, good point. All right, I'll go give her a kiss. All right, and then you get over it. You move on.
Right. It's kind of that. Having somebody and that is on multiple topics, and that's also why being a good man, being manning up and all this also goes to depending on your wife, because if your kid has you upset or something and you're frustrated, say you had just a bad day at work, or you had, like, for an example, I've spent almost 2 weeks working on a project that I do for work, right? And this includes late night works, all this stuff. So when my boss sent me the markups of my drawing saying, hey, it looked like a red line from, basically it looked almost as much red as there was white sheet on my drawing. And that's not a good thing normally. But this is also a very complex project. It's a lot of stuff, but when you see that, you kind of get there and you're like, after all that work, after everything I've done, you get kind of frustrated. Now, it's very easy to be annoyed when the kid comes up and you're looking at the email, and technically you shouldn't be paying attention to emails after work hours, but when you know, hey, I have to work after I put the kids to bed, you kind of look at stuff just so you prep. And, it's like I said, it's easy to get annoyed very easily at, the kid's doing this or doing that. And at that point, a wife can sit there and say, hey, leave daddy alone for a little bit. He looks like he's annoyed. He doesn't look happy. Come here, whatever it might be. And, once you realize, hey, I'm not at work. I need to get my head straight. I need to man up and focus on what's important. And that's kind of going to be where we need to be as men to say, in my opinion, you start off with, I'm here.
Right.
I'm not walking away, even if you don't marry the mother, whatever the situation is. If you marry a woman with a kid and you're becoming a stepdad, the manning up part is being there and being for the family, for whatever might occur, and being able to put your emotions aside,
Right.
not permanently, but put them aside long enough that you can do what's right for the children. What's the proper
And
thing you need
that
to do
was
to make sure they're safe.
Right. And that was something that I was like writing down when I was kind of reading and trying to prepare for this, to kind of get some information for myself so I can kind of remember what I went through and stuff like that. One of the things that I was reading was one of like a really big fear for a lot of men is the change in the relationship with your wife. And that's true. It's everything we just talked about. A lot of that stuff. Having a kid is definitely going to change the relationship with you and your wife. Big time.
Mhm.
There's a lot of things that are going to change. You can't go on dates no more. Your dates are no longer every weekend or every Tuesday, or they are now every July and July 3rd, and that's it. Once a year, if that. If, God forbid, if you can freaking find a babysitter. Not in the
Right.
town I live in. There's no babysitters. And if
Well,
you can find a babysitter in my town, they're like $25 an hour. Yeah, no, sorry. You're going to get a 12-pack of beer. That's it. You're a babysitter. Yeah, so, there's a lot of things that to me was something that I did not realize was going to change. It was a big fear of mine that there was going to be things that were going to change, but I did not realize a lot of things did change, other things. I thought, the mambo jumbo was going to be, oh, we still get it all the time, no. that like cut down like tremendously. That is no longer 4 or 5 times a week. That is now maybe once a week. And sometimes it can go like a month, and neither of us just have time to even deal with it. And we're just tired. We don't want to deal with it. And then, and then sometimes it could be like two times back to back, and then again we're like 2 months without even looking at each other cross-eyed. You know what I'm saying? So it's all over the place. Where before it was like, the wind to blow the right way, and I look at my wife like, oh, hey, let's get right. So
right.
it's that is something that changes big. Your money is going to be major, and that was a big financial thing that is hugely different, because before I had every penny on earth. I made pretty good money, because I was active duty in the military, so we get paid decent. I'm not a 6-figure man or nothing, but didn't need to be.
Right.
I had no responsibilities. I had a truck and a car.
So let me ask this.
Yeah.
So with the money issue, and I think this is something, once you take the steps, and part of people is probably hearing us talk about, oh, you need to do this, but we're not really mentioning many of the benefits of once you man up, the things that happen. And like you said, things do change once you have a kid. Now, I know for me personally, and I want to see where you stood, is once I had a kid, my focus became more on doing what's going to make more money, what's going to make a better future for me. So I became better. I believe once you get married, you become a better person normally, because you have somebody else that you have to care about and depend on and work with. Unlike a relationship, in a relationship, if you get angry, we're through, we're done, goodbye.
Yeah, if you're dating, it's just, well, see you later.
When you're married, though, you have to sit there and you have to work it out, because one, divorce is expensive, and it's a long process, and there's a lot of laws and things that you have to do. So if it's smarter, and you generally, if you got married in a church, even the like my wife and I, and people find it crazy, we dated for 4 months almost to the day that we got married.
Right.
And we went to where we live out here in the Virginia, Maryland area. Both of us, we didn't really have much family or friend out in this area, especially back then. We were still fairly new to the area. And so we decided, let's get married at the courthouse, which I found funny was the same courthouse one of my ancestors that came over here got married at as well. So, I mean, just kind of funny to me on that front. But the fact is even then they say they did the traditional, do you promise to love, obey, cherish, the traditional vows that they ask you. And, it's kind of that thing of once you get married and you say those vows, the question is do you plan on being an honorable man and respecting those vows? Because that's part of manning up is keeping your word, keeping your promise. So once you get married, you have that. But then along comes a kid. And, when it was just my wife and I, the whole rumpus and all this was great and fun. And when the kid came, that changed, obviously, especially once we had a second one. But it's also the fact of it wasn't like we're sitting there going, oh, no, I need this, I need this. It's, like you said, I'm tired, but in my opinion, and like I said, this is where I want you to chime in as well to let me know what you think is, I pushed myself harder. I became better. I became focused and wanted to be better so I could provide better for my kids, provide something that I could teach them. And my focus shifted from being on me. Mind you, I still have my hobbies so that, and I still do my things so that I can have that mental release. But I think, in my opinion, once I accepted being a father and I decided that I wanted to be better for my kids, and it was no longer about me, it's about the person I chose to bring into this world. I went, pushed harder, and developed a better life so that I could do that.
Yeah, absolutely. When like prior to having a kid, I mean, for me, it was like, no, I don't ever want a kid. That's gross. It's weird. They stink. They're miserable. Like, I hated kids. I was essentially like the complete opposite. Like, I was, I wouldn't say, like, back then, I didn't have any political association, so I wasn't left or right or MAGA or this or that or the other. I just didn't give a what, and I was more me and me only. That's it. I only care about me. So when it was like, back then it was like, oh, abortion, let them have it. Who cares? Nobody likes kids anyways. That was my mindset. It was that I didn't want nothing to do with kids. I thought they were gross. And then, as I met my wife, I started to kind of change a little bit. At first, when I started dating her, it was all about just dating. I didn't really care, had no intentions of ever lasting more than a couple months and moving to the next girl. But, kind of something changed. And then as we kind of started developing a relationship, it was kind of like we started thinking about a kid. And I mean, again, our topic here is fears. So I had like 50,000 fears under the sun. We worked through them and developed them. And then once we had the kid, the first thing I did, like the first time I ever saw the kid was like, oh my God, whoa, what is that? Came out of nowhere. And then obviously it took a few months before we really started like connecting, and before I started like it really sunk in. And then, I would say probably after about 6 to 8 months, I started to kind of shift, and my life was no longer mine. I decided my life is not mine anymore. I lived mine, lived my life. My life isn't mine no more. My life is for my kid. I traveled the world. I slept with 1 million girls. I did this, I did that. I jumped off of this mountain. I climbed that mountain. I jumped out of this plane. I did everything under the sun you can think of. I've been to how many countries? I'd have to sit down and think about it. I've been to 4 continents. I've been everywhere. I've done everything under the sun in the world and fun. So my mindset completely shifted, and I was like, it is now I don't need to do anything else. Yeah, I mean, yeah, selfishly, I want to go party. I want to go have fun. I'd love to. I've never had one place, all the places I've been, I've never been to China. I would like to go to China and go see like the Great Wall. I think that would be cool, right? So, but, it's maybe one day, yeah, but that day will be long after she's up and out of the house, married, maybe with her own kids. But for
Right.
now, my life is no longer mine. It is hers. Now, granted, with that said, I still, obviously, like you said, you still have to take care of yourself in order to be able to provide for her. If I'm miserable and grumpy, I'm not really doing her justice. So I have my hobbies here, my hobbies there, and my things for my own mental release. But for the most part, yeah. When one of the first things that I did was find my way out the military. That was one of the first things I did. I was like, I cannot have a kid and be active duty. Can't do it. It's just not good. You know what I mean? It's a miserable life, especially if you're deploying all the time and doing this stuff, going here, going there. It's not good for the kid because then what's the point of having a kid? I'm not around, right?
Right.
So that was the first thing I did was I found my way out of the military. Then the second thing I did, we moved to a town that is, small, nice, decent, low crime, blah, 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 good schools, so on and so forth. We found a good private school we really wanted her to go to. We got all that stuff squared away. Then I found a job. I got working. And then when I started working, when she was, like 2 and 3 years old, I mean, I focused more on my job. That way I could build something for her when she's 4, 5, 6, 7, because as she's 2 and 3 years old, she's not really, most kids don't really remember much.
Right.
So I spent a lot of time at work. And I mean, I even had her as my background on my computer. So I spent a lot of time at work making as much money as possible, developing my skills and getting good at what I did as best as possible. That way I can move into a position to be able to do like a management or supervisor or move up. And that way eventually I can get to a point in a position where I can calm down, focus on work, but also focus on her. And that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm to a position where I do my work, but I mean, I don't really kill myself at work. I do my job, I do what I'm paid for, but it's also just a job. I make sure that my job is right, and then, I overdo what I'm supposed to do. I don't just do my 40 and cut. I overdo because I do have an intention of, moving up in time and for her to make more money and grow. But I also spend a lot of time with her. I take a lot of time off. And one of the things that I wanted to do for her is for the future, where developing the Pancakes with Your Dad stuff and, the kids book series and even this podcast and all of these things, yes, they're for me and they're for helping others and stuff like that. But, I mean, they're also for her, in the future, because for one, it helps me learn a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And two, if the book series does well, it's something she possibly could inherit. You know what I'm saying? Maybe she could inherit them either if it's a short-lived series and it makes me some money, that money she can inherit. If it's a series that she can inherit and keep it and take over, then she can do that. Because I don't know if you read the Berenstein Bears to your kids.
Mm-hmm.
The Jan and Stan Berenstein, they're past now,
Right.
but they started that series. I mean, how many years ago? Before they're even born. Right now, their kids are their son. I forget his name, but he's the one who runs it all now. He does it all. It's his. So he inherited this Berenstein Bears empire. You know what I mean? So that to me is just it's almost like a legacy for them to inherit. So essentially everything I do now is for her.
So I mean,
even if it's for my
yeah. So I mean, it's kind of that thing that even though at the beginning we did kind of harp on kind of the step up, man up, there's reasons that fathers, especially fathers that's been fathers for a while and all this stuff, tends to be ones that's connected with their kids, that taking the
Right.
steps to do whatever's needed. Tell other people, hey, man up, do what you need to do, be there, all this stuff. Because there's a lot of benefits emotionally, mentally, and, even professionally. One, you tend to work harder, but, when, as a father, I've had interviews where I've intentionally brought up that I'm a father in the interview because, one, they're not allowed to ask you if you have kids.
Yeah.
But statistically, if a person that's hiring you know that you have a family that depends on you, they're more
Yeah.
likely to hire you because they know your first focus. You're not just going to get up and quit one day because
Right. Your
you
focus
got
is-
yelled at for coming in an hour late because the line at Starbucks was long.
Right.
You're going
Your
to
focus
have your
is-
butt in that chair as quickly as you can. You're going to do
Right.
what's needed because you have a family to provide for.
You're more reliable and responsible.
Yes. And I mean, that is something that, now mind you, I wouldn't say tell on every interview if you don't have a family or have a kid to say, yeah, my kid is great. Because if they hire you and they're like, so how old's your kid, by the way? Well, we're trying to have one. Well, wait a minute here. So
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah,
suggesting
you
that
don't-
as a interview tactic if you don't have kids, but
Yeah.
and make sure you love your kids before you start bragging on them too, but because you want to talk about your kids positively.
yeah.
And,
Right.
but yeah, I mean, it's just kind of that whole thing of there's a lot of benefits to it, and it's not always easy to step up, to man up, to cowboy up, whatever you want to say.
Right.
It's not always the easiest choice to make. And doing so, one thing I think we have a habit of pushing on this show is, as a father, you also need to make sure that you're stepping up and taking care of yourself mentally, physically, exercising, doing a hobby or something like that. But kind of like right now, you writing your books, your Justice Frogs book. Technically, that's a hobby.
Right.
And it's a hobby that can be passed on, just like us talking about being dads. Right now, this is a hobby that we're hoping to use as something to grow.
Something for the
you-
future.
Yeah, for you and I, it's helping dads. And, I know that there's something I want to do with this on my end to help fathers along the way. And, Call with Dads originally was a concept of just two dads talking so that, one, we could have support between ourselves and be able to also learn new ways of doing stuff. Because, like, some of the things you've mentioned just in the prior 5 episodes that we've done have given me things to think about of how I do stuff. And
Yeah,
So-
absolutely.
so,
We
I
kind
mean,
of ping back and forth ideas for sure.
yeah. And my hope is eventually, as we grow, we're going to bring people on. And as we do that, we're going to be getting more information, and we'll address these manning up topics. People will probably hear us talk about the same topics on and off throughout time, but
Yeah, absolutely.
manning up, like I said, is stressful. It's finding that release.
Right.
So finding somebody to talk to,
Yeah.
if you don't have a dad to talk to, like my stepdad's passed, and so I don't have my stepdad to talk to. But,
Right.
My neighbor across the street, we went trick-or-treating with my son and daughter, him and I and his fiance. We all went walking around the neighborhood, and we were drinking the hard cider Angry Orchard, and he's like,
Yeah, those are good.
and he's like, should we be drinking? I'm like, it's getting dark. No one's going to pay attention.
Yeah.
So we're walking around, having some drinks, just talking. My son and his fiance were running up to the doors and doing the trick-or-treating while my daughter she's not even 2, so she wanted to stay in the little cart and
Yeah,
play with
when it
the bag and the toys and all this stuff.
I
But
had a cup and I was putting my drink in my cup. And I was like, oh yeah, it's just soda, I swear. Oh,
Yeah.
It's just soda.
yeah, I didn't even go to that extent. We just had the bottles, and I just slid them right into the pockets of the little cart. So
I know it's super gay, but I am a White Claw guy. Totally, right? Yeah. I know, but I have my reasons, okay? White Claws. So I drank beer and whiskey my whole life.
Right.
I don't know if it's because I did that, but my stomach cannot handle beer anymore. So I drink like 2 beers and I'm done. I'm overbloated. I'm gassing everywhere. I'm burping up acid through my throat and everything else under the sun. And then I feel like crap in the morning. And drink whiskey, it's just too yummy. So I will like drink it like it's and that's when you're a grown man and you got kids and family and stuff like that. This is where that responsibility comes into play. So I just don't drink it anymore. Period. Maybe one day I'll have a sip of it again, but for now, it's not appropriate. So I used to drink the Bud Light seltzers, but then the Bud Light controversy, and then I was like, oh, that's gay, that's weird. But then I was like, you know what, I really don't care about controversy. This is just media melting my mind. And then, my wife likes them, but they were too sweet for me. So I tried White Claw one time, and I was like, you know what? The Bud Light ones are $20 for a 12-pack, and the White Claws are like $12.
I'll be honest with you. I've never had one. I've never even tasted a White Claw, so I know the stigma with them. With them, but
everybody's like, "Oh, White Claw." Yeah, well, you know what? They're $12 for a 12-pack, and I don't feel like crap in the morning, and I don't get bloated. So,
and that's the big thing. And that's another thing. Here's another thing: is as a dad, I've never really worried too much about what people thought about me overall, but since I've had a kid, I'll be honest with you, I cared even less. So if I went out in public, before having a kid, I would want people to look at me and go, "Oh, look at him," this and that. Now I'm just like, I'll go out in a pair of pajamas, some Crocs that have holes in them, and I'm just like my buddy made fun of me last time I went home. I had some Crocs on that had Santa Claus on them. And he goes, "You're really going for the dad vibe, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yeah, why not?" I'm like, I'm like, who do I have to impress now? I have kids that my kids' opinion matter a whole lot more to me than some stranger walking down the street.
Yeah.
So
yeah, my wife gets mad at me because I'm the same way. She overly cares a little bit what other people think of her. Me, I literally don't care at all, like zero. So,
right.
Like, I mean, we'll be out somewhere doing something, and somebody will do something, dumb or stupid, and I'll be like, well, that was stupid,
right.
Or they'll like get too close, and I'll be like, hey, maybe you should back up away from my kid. How about that? And my wife will be like nudging me with her elbow. You ought to be nicer. And I'm like, no. Like I don't care what this person thinks. They need to back up, stuff like that. So she's like, you can't say that to people. And then same thing with driving. Yeah. Same thing with driving. I'll be in traffic and I'll be like,
I'll bleep it out. People will figure out what you said through the bleep.
Through the bleep, yeah. So I'll smash the horn, be like, get out of the way, and my wife will be like, stop, you're going to get shot. I'm like, no, I'm not going to get shot.
The odds are low.
They need to get out of the way. Yeah, they almost ran into me and the kids in the car, so they need to move.
Oh yeah. So, and I'm pretty close to the same sentiment as you on that. Now I will give a caveat of I give 0% cares of what strangers think. So, like my neighbors that I'm friends with, my brother even. I talk to him very little, and the fact is even with my brother, I'm very bluntly honest. But I still care what he thinks. My mom, my mom, my wife, my kids. Now, mind you, my kids, what they say I take with a grain of salt because my son, like he loves my wife, he loves me. But if you go, who do you love? Do you love mommy? He goes, no, I love Boots, the cat. And I'm like, you can love more than one person at a time. There's different types of love, and I try to teach them that. But I mean, like at first, my wife was bothered by you go, no, I love daddy. I'm like, you can love mommy and daddy, so And
Yeah,
if he's angry with me,
all kids do that.
yeah, and it's part of what it is.
Yeah.
But that's why I say you take what the kids say with a grain of salt, and you kind
If
of
you're a
move on.
father and you have a daughter, just know your daughter is gonna be like, "I hate you, Dad." She doesn't actually hate you. It's just what she says. My daughter is 4 years old, and she does it probably once a week. She wakes up typically around 5:30, 6 in the morning, and I go in there to go, wake her up, start getting her ready for school, whatever, and I just crack the door open and go, "Morning, sweetheart." "I hate you, Dad. Get out." I didn't even do anything. I just came in to say good morning. So if you're dad and you're worried about that stuff, if that's a fear of yours, just know it's going to happen. They don't hate you, just life. It's a girl.
Yeah. So that at least gives me a heads up of what to expect with my daughter, because
Yeah.
right now my son's like, he's still all happy, lovey-dovey, and that's, I think part of that's also with our family environment being homeschooling,
Yeah.
where
I don't think boys are going to I don't have a boy, so I don't know, but I would assume a boy wouldn't have such an emotional up and down as a girl.
no,
Girls have it more, even when they're young. Because my daughter, man, like for no reason, like I can be hugging her and kissing her, and she's like, "I love you, Dad." 2 minutes later, she'll go potty, come back, and be like, "Hey, honey, you want like a banana or something?" "No, get away from me, Dad." "Ugh." "But you just gave me a kiss like a minute ago." Like, what is happening? I don't understand. But yeah, that's just
yeah.
girls just do that stuff. I think if that's a fear of yours as a dad, that's gonna happen. Suck it up.
Well, I know what to look forward to now with my daughter, at least.
Right.
Because I know
that's a good
sometimes
plan.
she'll walk and get an angry look on her face and then run
Yeah.
around playing and giggling. But yeah, my daughter has this look just out of nowhere of almost like a very mean, angry look. And you're just like, why are you giving that look?
I'm gonna go walk over here and leave you alone. Yeah. My daughter's. I'm not 100% sure of what it is or why, but she's. If every other kid in her class is here, she's up here. If every other kid in her class will say because it's not visually. If every other kid is a 5, she is a 10 in everything she does. She's louder, meaner, happier, faster, smarter. Everything's a 10, whereas everyone else in her class or school or that we meet is a 5. Her best friend, she's 4. Her best friend is 6.5. And those two are like the same, when it comes to everything. School, like in reading, writing, books, everything. Like, I don't think they read books that often, but we read books like every day. But
Right.
yeah, and so that just shows you the level. She's like up here all the time. So it's interesting times.
Definitely sounds like it. And like I said, it gives me an idea of what to expect to come with my daughter, because there is definitely a difference between boys and girls. And
Big time.
I'm seeing like my daughter, just little signs already. We're already projecting her to be a lot quicker at things than my son. So, but it's kind of like I've said before, each kid's going to find their own strengths, their own ways of doing stuff.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's like, for an example, and you notice it more as you age, where most people don't think about this, is you need to, instead of getting angry and saying, why are you doing something so stupid, simply look at it and go, okay, like my son, he gets, what if I get an answer wrong? Well, you work at it until you figure out. Your strength
Right.
might not be in math. And my wife
Right.
and I make jokes, or I make jokes that he's a bad Asian because my wife's Chinese.
Yeah.
So I make a,
My wife's
I'll make a
Korean too.
so like I'll make
Yeah.
the joke with my wife. Who knows? Maybe he's just going to be a bad Chinese, bad with math, good at driving,
Yeah.
and
Right.
she kind of look. So
I always tell my wife, I'm like, you're good at math, but she's only half good at math. So
yeah, it's just one of those things that you have to figure out where their strengths are. And one of the things is, like, we also joke that my daughter, she's like, I have a natural tan. My wife, obviously Asian, has a tint to her skin. My son has a tint to his skin. My daughter, white as a sheet.
Yeah.
And I mean, my mom's white, my grandma's white, just like, and people's mistaken me as Mexican growing up, that I get so tan and such. So I joke around that my daughter's going to be the whitest Asian you ever meet. So,
well, no, man. Have you ever been to any of those countries? Like any Asian countries?
I know they kind of want the lighter skin.
Yeah. So when I was stationed in Korea, my wife is, just so we're clear, my wife is of Korean descent, but she's never actually been to Korea. She's American. You know, she doesn't even speak Korean. She eats cheeseburgers and hot dogs, and she likes football and fantasy football more than I do, and she drinks beer. My wife is a normal American girl. She just of Korean descent. You know, she's from America. I've actually spent more time in Korea than she has. So I actually lived there for a year. She did not. So when I was in Korea, all the Korean girls and all the Korean people, they're white. They're like pale, like very, very white, especially the women. The men aren't so bad, but more so the women. And in their culture, obviously this is what I'm told. In their culture, the white signifies a higher class. Because when you're tan, you get tan from being outside and working, like labor and stuff. Right. So that is what that is. So if you're tan, you're a laborer, a worker, you're not as high class. So the whiter you are, the higher class you are. So that was kind of something. So all the women were like see-through. Like you see their veins. They're so pale.
Yeah, I know that's my wife. She is from China. So she was born, raised, and grew up in China, lived there for almost all of her life until maybe a little over a decade ago, 15 years ago, she came here to the States. And she still follows a lot of Chinese culture, things like that. And she's even told me that it's a symbol, like people really want the lighter skin because they really admire it. And I don't think the class thing follows nowadays as much. As more because right now you have people that are more, but if you're living out for the people who live in the city at least. But overall it's one of those things, and it's one of those things that you just sit there and go, okay, well, the cultural differences, like here in the States, my wife pointed out to me that she finds it funny that in Asian countries, the lighter you are, the more desirable people find you. But here in the States, if you have a tan, if you're darker skin or Mediterranean looking, things like that, people look at you like you're exotic. Ooh, and they find you more attractive that way. But different cultures, different views, things like that. And, one of these days we're going to have to get somebody from another country to come on to discuss the different aspects of being a father in another country or different cultural raising. And because, for the most part, I'd say you and I have similar cultural. I grew up in Ohio, you grew up in Florida, and even though there's different cultural differences there's still a combined relationship, I guess you could say.
Well, there's no such thing as Ohio man.
Ohio man? No, there's definitely.
There's the Florida man.
I think Ohio's trying to work on that some. I've seen some stories, but there's definitely a Florida man.
We have social media influencers completely based around people doing weird stuff in Florida.
Yeah, I've seen it. So
we're the only state that's had a zombie. Remember that guy that ate that other dude's face on the highway?
Oh yeah, that's been years ago, hasn't it?
That was years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot all about
never,
that.
they never figured out what that was. They think it was like a dude that was on there's that drug like Flocka or whatever it is. They
Oh,
think it. Yeah.
I'm so
They
out
think
of the
it was
drug world, I couldn't even tell you. So let's do this. There's topics, there's things that we're starting to drift off into again, like we normally do towards the end.
Yeah,
I mean,
as always.
yeah, I was gonna say it's
Fears
just
of becoming a father. No more swirling.
yeah.
Fears of becoming a father.
So summary, we have a lot of views, a lot of thoughts. Manning up is not just at the beginning of having a kid, but through the kid's life and doing what it takes.
Yeah.
And for anyone listening, if you haven't, you need to man up and subscribe to the show. You need to man up and tell people about the show.
Yeah. So I mean, I wrote down a small short list. I figured before we cut out, I just kind of give you my couple things that I was fearful of, in list form. That way you can kind of see. So one of them was I didn't really have a good example growing up as a father. The other one was, how to grow up and how to be a man. So that's where that manning up really comes into play. Another one was the mystery of the unknown. Having a kid, what's coming? What happens? What do I do? It's just an unknown. Another one, relationship with your wife. Is it going to change or is it not? How is it going to change? Financial, so expensive, being able to provide. The fact that one of my major fears was the fact that this is forever.
Right.
Once it happens, it's forever. There's no other choice there. Another one was being a good parent and raising a societally good kid or an adult. When the child becomes an adult, they're not like a jailbird or murderer or robber, scam artist. They're not a bad person. They're overall morally and justly good, and they're good for society overall, as well as themselves and their own family. Another one was medical issues. That was a big one. I didn't want to, God, man, I know a lot of people have children with medical issues, Down syndrome, mental retardation, whatever, maybe born missing an arm or something, who knows. And I feel for those people. I really do. Man, did I not want that. Golly, I can really feel for those people that have those kids that come out and they like within their first year, the kid has to have heart surgery. Like I've known somebody, my wife has a friend that had a daughter that has this disease that is essentially the child isn't going to live past like 5 or 6 years old. So what happens is when the child's born, the child progresses like normal until about the age of 2. And once they get to about 2, they progress backwards until they die. And so
like Benjamin Button.
Yes, but they only live till about 5. So so it's about 2, and then they go backwards 2 more years. They go forward for 2 years and backwards for 2 years, and they're dead. Just knowing that as a parent would be so painful. Knowing your child, you're never going to see your child grow up, and you got a year left or whatever, 2 years left or whatever the case may be. So these future medical issues were just like, oh man. That was a major fear. I don't want to have a kid because I'm afraid my kid may come out with Down syndrome and then I got to deal with it for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? So
right now on that topic, and I don't know if you have more to go into, but I find it funny you mentioned that because when my son was born, lady I grew up with, known my whole life basically, she had a kid. I would say I forget if it was like a month or 2 before my son or a month or 2 after my son. But when the kid came out, he came out prematurely.
Correct.
And so he's close to the same age as my son, but just was not supposed to be. But he ended up going through all these medical things, the heart surgery, brain surgery. Yeah. I mean, a whole list of things.
That's so tough.
Oh yeah. And I felt for her and her family. But the one thing that looking at that, and there's a lot that comes with it. There's a lot of heartache, a lot of rough times. She has, I think, 3 other kids as well. So she was also dealing with her other kids while trying to handle everything going on with this new baby. Now, last time I seen that kid, we went back to Ohio and we went to a church where my mom goes, and so does this family. And my son and this kid were just playing, running around, talking like normal, just having a good time, being mischievous boys, things like this. So one thing is I will say there's a lot of worries when it comes to medical things. Like you said, Down syndrome. There's SIDS that you need to worry about as well, which,
that kept me up like every day. I would wake up like every hour, like, you there?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yep, shit, crap, I woke her up.
Yeah, the first time your kid sleeps through the night is the most terrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, you look forward to it, but at the same time, as soon as it happens, you're like, you wake up in the middle of the night. Oh, what? I don't hear it. Yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot of fears that come on and all this that, and it's one of those things that we talk about the fears of a kid in the early parts of life. And I know there's going to be a lot of other fears that arise through time that we're going to have to address, and teenager years and all the different events, all the different things when they start dating, when they start driving, when they decide to either go to school or move out and get a job, which, you sit there and go, I can't wait for that date. But at the same tone, you're sitting there going, this kid's been with me for almost 2 decades. I'm worried about them not eating right. I know how lazy they can be at certain topics, how they are about these things, or are they going to step up and do this, or do I need to go to their house and kick them out of bed and say, hey, clean your house, you're going to get cockroaches. It's one of those things. So there's always going to be fears. And, part of the problem I think people have with manning up, stepping up, doing what's needed is fear, is they let fear get the best of them.
Absolutely.
The one thing is just like doing the podcast, talking, like before we started doing this, you and I never talked to each other prior. I mean, literally, the only time we talk now is through text messages and during the podcast. I had no idea if you were going to be some crazy guy that was going to rant off, but I knew that when I met you online through social media, I liked what you were doing. I liked your points, the things that you were trying to achieve, and I felt like, one, I wanted to connect and make an effort to try to, one, help you grow that, and 2, allow me to grow something as well. So there was a selfish prospect to it.
There's going to be. It's part of it.
But like, there was still that fear of it. I'm sure you had it too, is what the heck is this guy going to be like that I'm going to talk to? Is he going to say something that I'm going to have to sit there and go, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah. But these are things that you got to kind of step into. You do have to kind of pull back your fear. Like you said, man up and try them. If you don't try them, then you'll never know.
Right. So, that's the whole thing is you have to take steps to do what's needed, get over that fear. And, it's hard. Change is hard. Change will scare the daylights out of you in about any aspect of life.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
that whole taking the steps and doing what's needed to do it. And, once you start learning to face the fears that come in front of you, each fear that you face gets easier and easier. So it's another benefit of doing that whole thing. So let's do this. We've been talking for a little over an hour, I think, maybe close to an hour, somewhere around about there. So people, like I said, I made the joke earlier about manning up. Oh, I cut you off. Was there any other items that you
No,
had,
that was essentially my list of my fears that were the biggest ones. Obviously there's little ones here and there, but yeah, that was my list essentially. And if anybody listening ever has any questions about things that I particularly have done or you have done or whatever, don't be afraid to email us or ask us questions or send the Call with Dads has a recording thing where you can leave a voicemail,
Yep.
contact us thing. Definitely ask questions. We're more than happy to try and email back or answer back something. Try and give you as best ideas as possible. Obviously, we're never saying we are end all be all answer for all. We can give you our ideas, and if they resonate with you, then great.
Right. And yeah, we're just two dads, so we're definitely not experts of other than, hey, this is what our kid did. This is what we tried.
I'm no expert. And just because my one kid did it doesn't mean the other 3 billion on earth didn't do it. You know what I mean? It's just, this is what mine did.
Exactly. So let's do this. People should go to callwithdads.com. One, that website will lead you to your Pancakes with Dads with your dad.com, because there's a resource on there for people to go there to your website. It also has, if they go to your profile on that page on Call with Dads, there's a link there to Pancakes with your Dads, which I think that site's looking very good and very, very useful, a lot of information. You can contact either of us through Call with Dads. There's a contact page there. And like you pointed out, there's a recording where somebody can leave I want to say it's a 90-second message.
Yeah,
and if you have 90 seconds of something to say, that's a pretty long-winded thing, and we'll listen to it all. But you can say a lot within a minute and a half. So, but I mean, generally, there's a lot of ways to reach out to us. And I know I joked about it earlier, but usually the best way to get people to listen to us, because the more people that start listening to us find us, and it'll help the show grow. And keep in mind, we're not doing any of this to make a dime. This is actually costing us money to do, and we're fine with that. We're not right now. We're not doing any donation. Well, I forget if we have a donation thing set up, but
I think we have the buy me a coffee thing on the Call with Dads page. But yeah, pretty much any donations that we get, if it's anything, it will go to the show for something. Right. That's not anything financial. I had a guy the other day on my Pancakes with Your Dad page. He was yelling at me, "Oh, you're just another social media, this or that, the other, blah, blah, blah. You're always trying to sell your books and stuff." I was like, yeah, you know why? I created a page for the Justice Frog series, a Facebook page, and I told him, I've sold a few, I've made a little bit of money. And every single penny that I've gotten from that, I used it because it's through Amazon, so I can't even get a free of my own book. I have to buy my own books. Right. So I used every penny so I had it set at $9.99, and my royalties for that through Amazon is like $1.80, something like that. Yeah. So I took those $1.80s for every book, and I collected them, and I used it to buy more books. And then I took those books and I donated them to the public library.
Yeah, and that's so anyone that is thinking that because you wrote a book you're getting rich, believe me,
not at all.
The authors that you see like R.L. Stein or Tolkien or these huge named authors, they're rarities. I mean, you have some authors like Larry Correia, who is just a massive writer, massively successful, all these things. Most writers barely make enough to even cover the expense that it took to create, market, do any of this stuff for a book. Yeah. So, like, for us, right now, if we get donations and all this for Call with Dads, the likelihood is it's going to be to buy Mr. Pancake a better microphone. So with that, I mean, it will go back in the show, or it'll help improve the hosting service or something along that lines. This is not for us to get money, make rich, be rich, anything like that. We have full-time jobs. Yeah, we have full-time jobs. We focus on our kids. This is really a project that we have that we want to build a community that other people can grow with and have support, have answers. Because, when I first became a dad, all the podcasts were about dads really didn't address the things that I felt or the things I dealt with. it felt more of a technical kind of conversation, or a single
Yeah.
person trying to interview an author, which, don't get me wrong, we'll interview authors, we'll interview other podcast people, other social media influencers that's in the dad sphere, things like that. But generally, at least in my perspective, and I think same with you, is this is for us to create support, create a community of fathers that know they're not alone. Hey, it's okay to be scared, but you have to man up. Shove it down for a little bit, and once your kids are to bed, once your kids are abed, take that time and figure out how to deal with your fears. Do what you need to do, whatever it takes. But yeah, it's when I say share this with people, it's share it with other dads, post it online. If we say something you find interesting, let people know. Hey, I heard it here. Because as we grow, the more people's going to find us. The more people find us, the more other people can find out they're not alone dealing with what we're dealing with. You can find us on social media, Pancake with Your Dads on Truth, Twitter, Facebook.
Yep. So Pancake with Your Dads has a Truth Social, a Twitter, or X as we call it now, a Facebook, an Instagram, and a LinkedIn. And every single one of those, if you follow me, for the most part, I'm probably going to follow you back, just because I do my best to follow my supporters and support you if you support me. And also, a lot of those social media sites don't allow you to communicate with each other unless you follow each other. So I try to follow people back. That way they can send me a message. The Facebook's different. Facebook, you can just always send me a message and I'll always respond. And Call with Dads also has, we have a True Social. We do have a Twitter or X. There is a Facebook. I think there's not an Instagram. There's a Facebook, but no Instagram yet. I think is that it?
I think so. When we run a group
Facebook,
on
Twitter.
Truth Social, we do have a support group there where people can come on, talk. It's a nice size. It's 500 and some people now, so it's not a huge group, but it's growing. I see new people coming on every now and then, and part of it is people's sharing stuff that they find interesting, and they talk, and it's all about trying. Like I said, right now what we're doing is trying to grow, trying to support, try to be better dads ourselves, and that's a lot of what this is. So let people know and reach out to them, and from there, if you like us, tell people.
Yeah, so, and then go check out our websites, callwithdads.com and pancakeswithyourdad.com. Those are the two so far.
Perfect. So let's end this now, so before we go on another rant, and then we'll talk with people very soon.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye.